What's up, everyone? Thank you for checking out this episode of Raised a Geek. This week, we are diving into how Dwayne Johnson went from the top of the DCU mountain to under it in the span of a week. And it's finally time for our Black Adam review. So let's get into it. I'm Chris, and as always, I'm here with my buddy Don. How we doing, man?
Chris, what is up today? My friend, we are okay. Just enjoying this Saturday, coming from a haircut just in time for... Got to get that fresh holiday cut, you know.
I got mine this week.
Yeah, man. When you're going to see family, you got to not look like a hobo, or at least as close to as possible.
A little bit. Got to clean up. Going to see my mom next week, so I got to clean it up, make sure I look good, make sure I look the good son part. You know, when I'm away, I can look like a ragamuffin, but
ragamuffin.
If I go see my mom and I look like trash, she's going to be the first person to be like, "You do not look good."
Like what's going on there?
What are you doing with your face?
You are coming home for the holidays for a couple days. That'll be fun.
That I am. Decided to spend some Christmas time, had some time to take off work. So going for that cross-country trek, lugging a dog across the country.
Yeah. Oh, you're bringing the dog this time?
Yeah, we dragged our feet to actually making plans to get up there. So then everything got expensive and it's really hard to board the dog over the holidays. So we're like, I'll just bring the dog.
There you go.
Done it quite a few times.
You driving? You're driving.
Yeah, we're driving.
Okay.
Driving, it's fine. Taking a little bit shorter route, so it should be cool. Make it work. Christmas trip, getting up there. So speaking of, it's going to be Christmas time, a couple days before. By the time this drops, I'm sure we're a week from the day. No, it's next Sunday. So we're almost a week, just over 8 days from Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Hope you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, kind of whatever you guys are all doing. Hope everyone's having fun, seeing family, being safe, doing all that good stuff. And Don, I'll see you around Christmas, which would be cool. I think we're going to do a post-Christmas brunch hangout in between work and in between family. I think we're going to have a good time. So I'm excited about that. But what holiday movies you still got yet to watch?
Man, I don't even think I've hit any yet. And it's like, what? Like you just said, 8 days to Christmas. And I've already told my wife, like, we're watching Home Alone. She's like, no, you can watch it on your own. I'm like, that's fine too. I don't care. I'm going to watch it though. I got to get Home Alone in. At least once here in this next 8 days. And she wants to watch Die Hard. So I am totally down with that as well. So I know those two are definitely on the watch list. I'm sure there's probably a couple others, once you get like within the days before leading up to,
you start watching them.
Yeah, you just start rallying them off real quick. So that's the plan. How about you? Have you watched any yet or still got to get to them?
I put on Scrooge the other day. So I watched Scrooge while I was making cookies for a holiday potluck that we had on Friday. And I thought that worked. I put on Anna and the Apocalypse yesterday, and I did watch that one. Die Hard still on the list that I'll end up needing to watch. I know once I go home, I'll probably watch all of them and more because my mom will just have stuff on. So I'm thinking Die Hard's one I know I need to have on. Home Alone usually falls in there, but I don't know.
We'll see. Did you get to that new Christmas Story? Christmas.
We did watch that. It was good. It was it kept the same tone. They did a good job with doing what they did.
Nice. I feel like I'm gonna throw that on in the background here one of these days.
It's definitely worth, especially if you end up with the Christmas Story on Christmas Day, which most people do. If you're into that camp, I know some people boycott it purposefully, but when it ends up being on one of those channels for 24 hours, it just kind of you end up watching it at some point.
Most definitely.
So it's an easy one to put on. It had some feels. It had some good nostalgia. They handled a lot of the nostalgia well instead of like slapping you over the face with it.
Man, it's just nice to see Peter Billingsley still getting a little work, a little recognition for the role of his life.
Yeah, letting him do some acting again. I know he does a lot of producing with Vince Vaughn. They're like best friends or whatnot. So I know he keeps busy, but to be able to come back to that role, he did a good job. So it was a good time. It was a nice, out of the newer holiday movies that come out every year, it was a nice surprise. A lot of them end up being kind of garbage. And for one I had no idea was coming out, kind of was cool. Most likely, we're not going to have an episode next week, so we're going to give you all a holiday break from us. We'll be back here in the 1st of January with our top movies and TV shows of 2022 is our current plan. We'll see if maybe we get excited and sneak in another episode, then bonus for you. But you want to make sure with that week off that you don't miss us. So make sure you like, subscribe, and follow this podcast on all podcasts and social media services. Hit us up with those 5-star reviews. And if you want to join the conversation, you can hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Raise the Geek. Or you could shoot us an email, raisethegeek@gmail.com.
Those are all the places. And I'm kind of glad we have a little time to continue compiling our list, because I still have some movies to watch, I think, before we get there. I'll save what those are, but little time's not going to hurt to get to that list.
I definitely have a couple that I want to watch, some that don't come out till Christmas Day, and I'm still dragging my feet on Avatar 2. I don't know if I'm going to get it in. So we will see. But Don, we are here today to talk about DC. Now, at DCU, we talked about last week because there was lots of moving and shaking. And now, as I'm saying it out loud now, I'm like, what announcements did they make last week? What the hell were we talking about last week?
See, we kind of left it open-ended because the news had started to come. That's like, the Wonder Woman movie.
That's what it was. That's what kicked it off. Wonder Woman 3 being canceled.
Right.
And what does that mean for all these characters? And now we found out this week what it means for all those characters, because news came out that Peter Safran and James Gunn have sat down and given their full proposal for everything. And one of the biggest news that came out of this was that Henry Cavill is out as Superman.
Yes, that is the biggest bomb to drop out of all.
We just got him back.
I know. And this is kind of what we were expecting but not sure was going to happen. But yeah, it's all laid out kind of plain now, straight from the mouth of James Gunn himself. He's the one who tweeted it, kind of keeping people updated, saying Superman is a priority. That was the first thing coming out. He's saying possibly the biggest priority for us right now. People are like, all right, cool, let's see what they do. And then just stuff kept coming. Him saying like, I'm writing the Superman movie, and it's going to be about Superman when he's early in his life as Superman, like a younger Superman. And that's the point where it was just like, uh-oh. And you keep reading, and it's like, we talked with Henry Cavill, and he is not involved in this film. We'll give you more information about it when we can. And that was just like, oh man, the internet exploded, because you have people who are the Snyder heads who it's basically ruining their life. Yeah. Then you got the next level of people like us. I think we fall into the camp where, we're taking it as all that kind of sucks because we like Henry Cavill as Superman, and we wanted to kind of see him get another chance to do something
away from Snyder. Like Snyder got the casting right, just not the vibe of the character. Like, and that's not going to be. That's not to be. It was not meant to be. And man, the internet's been burning on this ever since. I think it's crazy. Yeah, it's been a few days. It was kind of been confusing. And one of the things that kind of shifted over then was because Henry Cavill was kind of out as Superman already. Like, we thought the last time we were going to see him was Zack Snyder's Justice League, which came out. And then we kind of was in limbo, and you never really knew where Superman was going to return again or what form he was going to take. And then Black Adam came out. And right before Black Adam came out, all of a sudden we heard the news that basically from Dwayne Johnson himself leaking this news that Superman is going to be in this movie, and it's who you think it's going to be, and basically telling you Henry Cavill is in this movie. And then they leaked that it was a post-credit scene before the movie came out, because most likely the movie was tracking poorly, and they were like, hey, let's bust a Morbius and let's give away the post-credit scene so people will come see this movie.
Right.
And then they did. Henry Cavill was in this movie. And then I think October 22nd. Spoilers, if you didn't know already, but we've talked about it on the show as well. But he's in the movie. And then on October 22nd, we got a tweet from Henry Cavill basically saying, I am back. Man of Steel 2 is in pre-production. I am back. We don't know all the details yet, but I'm very excited to do this character differently. And everyone was extremely happy about that, because I don't think there was anybody that was clamoring for a new casting for Superman. And then fast forward to this week, less than 2 months later, 5-6 weeks, Henry Cavill's out. And you're just like, what just happen in this. The Dwayne Johnson was out here talking about the hierarchy of power is about to change, and then all these things hyping up his movie and his role within DC, and seemed like he was the man. He was the hero for Snyder heads and DC people for what, 5 weeks?
Just about, yeah.
5 weeks. He was the hero he was the man that brought Henry Cavill back. And now he has been in full defense mode, which is super weird for The Rock to be in defense mode. Usually he doesn't like talk on Twitter about things, or definitely doesn't come out in defense of anything. Usually he's not being attacked for things, and he started being attacked. He felt he was being attacked because there were reports of Black Adam losing money and not turning a profit. And he jumped out on Twitter real fast to say, wait, we're actually going to make this much money based on our calculations. And it's more than the original Captain America. And that started everything. So, just think of it that way. And you're like, yeah, but the original Captain America didn't cost over $200 million. And it was a different thing, so they had a lower budget just because they didn't know how the movie was going to perform. And Black Adam, they just went expecting that it was going to make $1 billion. And I think they're barely going to make 400 million.
Yeah.
So it was really weird to see him go super defense mode that way.
Yeah. This is, I think, also a case of his overconfidence. Yeah. And him basically coming out and actually responding to reports that, hey, Black Adam was kind of a bomb, a failure in financial terms. Him actually responding to that did say a lot. And I think WB even like responded and been like, well, actually your numbers are kind of wrong. And he like kind of tried to backtrack really quick, basically realizing I just shouldn't say anything. But I feel like he feels offended. You know what I mean? Like in his mind, he thought this was going to be bigger than it was. There would be more interest in it than there was. Probably didn't think he would have to give away the Henry Cavill, cameo at the end to help it along. But somewhere along the line, like you said, he decided that we need to tell people Superman's in this, so maybe we get a few more people to come. Yeah, man, it's wild, and just the finality of knowing now that Henry Cavill is not going to be Superman is a little weird, because it was always just so up in the air. Like we didn't know which way they were really leaning. Like at the end of Shazam, you had a Superman walk up at the end. Now you never saw his face, but Superman was in the end of Shazam. Like he came to the school cafeteria and everyone was like, that's so cool. Peacemaker, the Justice League shows up. They showed,
Henry Cavill,
Flash, and they showed Flash and Aquaman, but Wonder Woman and Superman were in that shot too as like their silhouettes, but it was Henry Cavill's silhouette. So there was always this little hope that, we will finally get him back. They're going to do something with him. They know they got the casting right. This is going to stick. But then at the end of Black Adam, not only do we have Superman, but Henry Cavill's in it. You know what I mean? And just to do such a quick flip flop is a little weird. And I get it, because that wasn't James Gunn's decision. And now he's in charge. So he doesn't want to do that. They don't want to do that. But it's just very, I don't know, man. It's like, it just feels icky and wrong. Something about it just feels, not right to me still. I don't know.
Yeah. Why did Dwayne Johnson feel like this movie was going to be a bigger success than it was? What about it? Like, now we've seen it. We're about to dive into our review of it here in a couple minutes and talk openly about this movie and what it is, full spoilers. But I'm just curious if you have an idea, like he really expected something and had to switch gears before the movie even came out. So, I mean, I know it was tracking poorly. Like, is there a combination of things? Is it just an ego thing? Is it it kind of what Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino said, is that there's no movie stars anymore and these movies are based on the characters and not who's playing them? Is it what do you have an idea of anything?
I don't know. I think in his mind, he's just like one of the biggest stars in the world, which he is.
He is.
But I only think that goes so far now. Like maybe 10 years ago, this movie would have been bigger than it was. But I don't know if his name is as huge of a draw for action movies as it used to be. And you take that along with, the reports where he basically had his option to be whoever he wanted in the DCU, and he chose Black Adam for whatever reason. The reasons are all his own. We have our thoughts and theories on why. Like like maybe he wanted to play Superman and he just couldn't, and he found somebody who was close. You know, he wanted to be a guy who could fly and was invincible and be a super powered, tank guy. It's like, oh, this Black Adam guy is kind of like that, huh? And he's kind of a badass. Like he's got more of a bad attitude. Sure, I'll do that. It'll make $1 billion. Well, the general public don't know Black Adam. I'm sorry to tell you, like we barely know. We know who Black Adam is, but he's not an A-list DC character. He's like somebody who the general public has to dig in and be like, who? What is that movie? Who is that guy? Oh, Dwayne Johnson is, but I don't even know who the character is. Like, does he fight Batman? Like, who is he? Like nobody really knows. So I think just a combination of that and maybe just DC fatigue too adds into it. Like people were already getting tired of DC's shit show before all this, with all the Snyder stuff. So I don't know, man. It's just overconfidence on his level.
I think that has to be a big part of it. I think too, looking at it now, we're pretty much been told now. Last week it was no Wonder Woman 3. And in its current state, it's not moving forward. So potentially Gal Gadot's out. This week we lost Henry Cavill, and they pretty much said Ezra Miller is done as the Flash. So basically,
I was going to say, and if you look at this, I don't know if you saw the new DC logo. Did you see it? It's got there's a new DC logo for DC films, and it's basically got the silhouettes of the 6 main characters. Well, they took Cyborg out and added Green Lantern, but it's like Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Superman, and on the other side, it's Batman, Flash, Aquaman. And the Aquaman looks like the comics Aquaman, looks nothing like Jason Momoa. So people are like, well, Momoa's out as Aquaman too. They made Aquaman just look like, short blonde cut from the comics. Like that doesn't look anything like Momoa. So people are like, yeah, he's out too. They're all out.
So what does that do next year? We have an Aquaman movie. We have a Shazam movie. We have a Blue Beetle movie. We have the Flash movie. We have 4 movies coming out next year that are all tied to the Snyderverse in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
What are these movies? How do they go forward marketing these films? Like, I know we should be able to just be like, hey, Aquaman 2, let's just go watch Aquaman 2 and have a good time under the sea. But can we?
Yeah. Under the sea with Sebastian and Flounder.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We should be able to, but they've built this world as a universe, as a, they took the Marvel formula and they were like, well, this is a building thing and these characters matter for the next thing and can't wait to see them in their next adventure and the team up. They built it that way.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell them to build it that way. They did. So now if they want to turn around and say, well, just enjoy them as like one-off solo adventures, but that's not how you built this universe. Everything you've presented me so far is, building to the sequel or the next adventure. So now to turn around and say, after these 4 movies, there's nothing left of this world. Yeah. How are you marketing it to us as, Flash was supposed to have a bunch of repercussions to the future of what's going on. It's supposed to change everything and timelines. And maybe that's how the old regime was going to reboot the whole world. Now, what is it? Now, I don't know. I'm questioning the thought on these movies even coming out at all. And they're going to, because they're made and the studio wants to make money, but it's just, I don't know how to approach them. Like my interest level has waned, especially with the announcement of, Wonder Woman and Superman were both supposed to have cameos and Flash. Now those are cut.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know, man. It's very, I'm finding it hard to get excited about any of those films at this point.
Yeah.
Really,
they need to
just be honest.
No, yeah. They need to move them to HBO. And I mean, honestly, I don't even know how fast I would watch them there. Like my interest was extremely low for any of these movies. Like you said, we waited till HBO for Black Adam because my interest was extremely low for this movie. Watching the trailers, I was like, I know what this movie is. I don't need to watch it. So whether or not I was surprised or not, we'll find out in a minute. But it's one of those things where I just don't. My interest was already low, and then you just really made it so it's like, why should I have any interest in these movies? I've seen a Shazam 2 trailer, looked fine. Ben Affleck's Batman was shown in it. What does that mean? And So once again, there's all these teases, and then I don't know, these movies were made with teases in mind, and now I know those teases won't go anywhere, so it makes me not even want to watch the movie.
Right.
And then speaking of Batman, to really, I think the last real big point comes out of this is what happens. We had two Batmans to begin with. We had Ben Affleck, Batfleck, and we had Robert Pattinson's Matt Reeves Batman. Now, how do we tie? Like, they're still insistent that Matt Reeves' The Batman 2 is happening. And that's its own thing, is its own corner and not part of what I'm doing. But we're going to have all the main characters, which you assume Batman. So once again, we're right back where we were, where we're going to have two Batmen running around, but they're not going to be connected and not going to be tied, but you're going to connect everything else, but nothing into this movie. How does that make sense? That can't be true. It can't. It can't.
You've already now said Superman's not coming back as we know him. There's no Henry Cavill. At this point, pull the Band-Aid off and do it right. Do the whole thing right then. You know what I mean? Just have one Batman. And the more appealing choice to me is to build it off of Matt Reeves. But see, then at the same time, I don't want Matt Reeves Batman fighting aliens and Darkseid. It just doesn't feel right. So I don't know. They're in a very weird spot. But like I don't want to have to pay attention to 3 different DC universes. You know what I mean? And keep track of all that. Like, it just doesn't make sense. There's there's not 3 Iron Mans running around. I mean, it's just too confusing. It's and it feels like this is the point where you could say, okay, like I said last episode, maybe Matt Reeves' Batman was our Iron Man. We build from there. We don't want to do a ton of super team up movies right off the bat, but you could build to something. You know what I mean? Maybe this younger Superman movie you're making exists in the same world as Matt Reeves, but they're not going to have to interact with each other crazy. I don't know. But turning around and having your James Gunn Batman and your Matt Reeves Batman and your Todd Phillips Gotham with a Joker and a Batman somewhere in there. It's just like, this is your chance to get away from that and not do that again. So I don't know, man.
It's convenient that the Superman they want to do is brand new and only a couple of years into starting off his thing and just seeing where he's at. And that's exact pitch we got for the Batman with Matt Reeves. Oh, this is, Batman year 1, he's in year 2 of his career, just learning the ropes and needing to learn how to be a hero. And that's the exact same pitch that now we're getting for James Gunn's Superman movie. So I'm like, oh, you're putting them in the exact same kind of like era of time here, whether or not they did it together at the same time anyway, in actuality comic book lore, but they're doing it in these movies. So it's like, I feel like they're doing that on purpose. I just can't imagine a world. Now I was watching, I'm going to give a shout out for 3C Films over on YouTube. And I was watching some of this stuff as I was preparing for the show and seeing what other theories and thoughts and stuff were out there. And one of his theories was, because James Gunn did say, he put out on Twitter, Batman will have a big part of our DCU. He is a cog. And one of the theories that that 3C Films threw out there was, what if that version of Batman is dead? So he has a big part because it's the loss of Batman and a lot of stuff happens. So it's like you talk about him, you can do flashbacks, you could do things, but he's kind of more carried along like post Iron Man 3 Tony Stark. So it's like you can see him pop up in flashbacks or do other things, but he's dead. Or like you said, you do the Iron Man thing where he just pops up in other people's movies and doesn't get a solo movie. Would either one of those theories, I kind of merge them together there, but he could still be involved, but not get his own, so then you don't have 2 solo. I mean, you can't have 2 solo Batman movies out there. You can't. One summer we have Robert Pattinson as Batman, and the next summer we have, Chris Pratt as Batman. Like that doesn't
James
work.
Gunn's.
Yeah.
Chris Pratt, please God, no.
He's tied to James Gunn.
Yeah.
Guardians are done.
Yeah. Oh my. Don't do this. I rather have a John Cena Batman. I don't know, man. I can kind of see that theory maybe being something that might pan out. I'm more in the camp of you, kind of, where the Matt Reeves Batman seems like it could be connected to the Superman, and they're just not ready to say that yet. They don't want to come out and say, they have to work out the kinks a little bit first. Probably a lot of meetings between Matt Reeves and James Gunn and whoever else.
Yeah.
Figure out a way to make it work. I won't hate that. And it makes the most sense just for everything to fit logically. You know what I mean? You had this movie where you started young Batman and it was successful and people loved it. There just has to be a way to somehow make that work and not have 3 Batmans running around. I don't know.
Yeah, we won't know. We will be here to talk about it when we figure it out. Or when we get the announcements. This is obviously all speculation. It's just been a crazy week on Twitter. We've had all kinds of crazy things coming out there. We learned that Dwayne Johnson refused a Black Adam cameo in Shazam 2, which DC wanted him to do, and he said no. There are a lot of different varying stories as to his reasoning behind doing it. But regardless of what's true and what's not, the fact that he was asked and he said no kind of speaks volumes as to what he thinks about Shazam. But why pick being Shazam's main arch nemesis if you're going to refuse to be in Shazam? So like, it's just a weird situation. It's been a weird, crazy week.
I think it's just because he doesn't really care about the characters, like their comic lore. He's like, I'm not fighting Shazam. Someone's like, but Black Adam and Shazam were tied directly to each other. So I don't care. I'm fighting Superman.
Yeah.
But it's kind of wild, and that they let it get that far. And he has that much sway that he could just be like, no, like what? You're not really in this for the growing of this universe. You're kind of just in it for yourself.
He wants to grow the universe around Black Adam.
Him. Yeah. Fighting Batman and Superman and whatever.
Being the bad guy without being the bad guy. And you know what? I think we should talk more about that, because I think we should do our Black Adam review and talk, because we probably dragged on about this long enough. So let's get to our Black Adam review.
Before a world of heroes and villains, one power ruled it all.
Black Adam.
So Black Adam, the film featuring Dwayne Johnson, came out in theaters on October 21st in the United States, and in less than 2 months, it is now on HBO Max streaming, and that is how Don and I were always planning on watching this movie. So it's time for our review. Spoilers from here on out for Black Adam. If you haven't watched it, you can pause it, check out HBO Max, or you could just listen to us and then watch it afterwards, taking some of our thoughts into consideration as we talk about this movie. But let me give you a brief synopsis for this movie. The movie starts in 2600 BC, where there's a tyrannical king, Akhton of Kahndaq, who creates the crown of Sabak to attain great power. After attempting to stage a revolt, a young slave boy is given the powers of Shazam by the Council of Wizards, transforming him into Kahndaq's heroic champion who kills Akhton and ends his reign. And that is the opening of Black Adam. And it just goes from there. The opening, we ended up watching it like 3 times because it just they dumped so much information on you in this opening, and then so many things that they were ripping off of. Or it sounded like I thought they were like, oh, this crown that was made to house the 6 demons and to give power to this king. And I'm like, is that an infinity gauntlet? Because I thought it was 6 stones. And then they were looking for a stone of, what is it, unobtainium? Or no, wait, that's Avatar.
This was Eternium.
Eternium. So, like, and then we have vibranium.
Eternium. Yeah, exactly.
Like, I was sitting there like, what is going on in this opening? I had to watch it like 3 times to figure it out. Once I finally figured it out, I'm like, all right, let's go along for this ride and see what we got. But Don, as an overall, because then we jump to present day, which was the 90s. What year did this movie take place in?
Nobody knows,
because they said present day, so I'm thinking 2022. Then they're immediately playing Smashing Pumpkins, so I thought it was the 90s. And then they show flying cars, which makes me think we're in the future. And then they go down to this Middle Eastern country, this Kahndaq, and everybody's using flip phones and playing cassettes. while listening to Smashing Pumpkins or even older music from the 70s or 80s. No idea when this movie took place because it looked like it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
But felt like the future, but then seemed like the past.
Yeah. I think it's kind of hard to pin down the time for sure because of all you just said. They might be leaning into the idea of like maybe this is a third world-ish type country that doesn't get the stuff as soon as the rest of the world. That might have been what they were going. They never specified that though. I think just judging on, and we'll get to it, like the final scene, we can kind of surmise that maybe this is post Justice League. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% positive on that. So not very clearly explained by the filmmakers, I would say.
No, I mean, like I said, I agree with you. I do think that was my explanation, was that we're looking at a third world country, so they're still rocking the cassettes and doing all of that stuff and feeling like that vibe. So I mean, I agree with that. Yes, I obviously if we have, it's got to be post Justice League in some way, somewhere within that, because we did have that cameo. So there's a lot going on. But then there's so much going on in this movie, man. There's so much going on. I need to pull up the IMDb that I forgot to pull up already, so I can get some of these character names.
Well, that's all right. While you're looking it up, I'm just curious. I want to know, before we even get into the movie itself, like, you and I are guys who mostly, for the most part, will go see these superhero movies in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
We like these worlds. Even DC movies, which we don't, I mean, we kind of seem to rate lower than Marvel most of the time, but we still go see them. We like comic book movies. We like comic books. What's the real reason that kept you from seeing this in theaters? What was the like decision that made you want to ultimately wait until this was like free on HBO to watch? Like, we may have talked about it here and there. I have my reasons too, but I'm just curious, like, we're doing our Black Adam review now in December when this movie's been out since October. What kind of kept us from watching this?
Dwayne Johnson. I mean, that's really it. He, to me, watching the trailers, the movie looked extremely out of place. He looked out of place in the movie. It just didn't look right. Black Adam as a character, I don't know anything about. Like, I just don't. It wasn't a character. DC isn't outside of the main line. I don't dig too deep into DC, into that world. I don't read a lot of DC comics outside of Batman and a little Superman. I don't think I've ever really dug. I mean, a little bit like Swamp Thing, Animal Man I've read. There's little things. I'll stick with some of the DC like Black Label stuff or some of their weird horror stuff. But when it comes to like superheroes, I don't go digging too deep. I never really read any Shazam, little bit of Aquaman with the New 52, but a lot of things that I don't really dive. So, I mean, less interest in the character. Of course, a lot of the conversations we had about like the DCEU, the end of the Snyderverse, a lot of confusion as to what this was. And then when you watch the trailer, it just looked like a generic 90s superhero film, knowing that Black Adam is the villain, but knowing that they were going to try to portray him as an anti-hero, which I know he is in the comics, and I know they turned him into that, but it's still just weird. And I'm going to get into the tone of this film and the struggle that this film had with that as on its own core. But yeah, it just looked like very predictable. Like, I knew what the story was going to be. And you know what? I was right. You were going to have the reluctant hero who was going to do his couple bad things. He was going to fight the heroes. And then there was going to be a bigger bad. They're going to have to come together to fight in the end. And guess what? That's exactly what happened in this movie. So it's just, they didn't have a one thing. I know the big thing is, hey, Dwayne Johnson's in this. You want to see The Rock as a superhero, right? No, I don't. And I still don't.
Yeah.
My opinion, and we'll, like I said, dive into it. My opinion, he was the weakest part of this movie. He was the most out of place. He didn't fit the tone. He didn't have any of the charisma that he has in real life to be likable or hateable. He just was there, and his presence isn't nearly enough. And I'm not the biggest, like, I'm a huge wrestling fan, like The Rock, seems like a nice guy. He seems like, stand up, yada, yada. But I don't go run out to see any of his solo movies. I've never seen San Andreas. I've never seen Snitch. I've never seen, I mean, there's countless of his movies, unless they're part of a bigger thing. Like, I've seen the couple times he was in the Fast and the Furious movies. I saw that, But outside of that, like I don't go out of my way to see his movies. So it's just something that's never been an appeal for me. So it, to me, worked as a deterrent. How about you?
Yeah, you pretty much laid it out right there because I pretty much agree with everything you just say. It's Dwayne Johnson. It is. And we've talked about it here. I admire him as a public figure. I think he's the biggest success story. I mean, he is the biggest success story to ever come out of professional wrestling. We loved him as a professional wrestler, as The Rock for years. He was the best to do it for years and years. And wrestlers have tried to come off of wrestling and make a career in other things. And a lot of them don't succeed. And he's the one who actually did. And he's like one of the biggest names in the world, has a successful, tequila company, energy drink company. He owns the freaking XFL, making all these huge blockbusters that people go to see. But you know what? I don't love him as an actor. I really don't. I see him in things and he's okay. There's a reason he only makes one certain kind of movie. It's because that's just like what he fits in. And just so like his presence as a superhero, just to me, it's like he's almost too big for it. Like it's distracting. Yeah. It's distracting to have him as something in DC. I'm sorry, it just is. And I know, and that's to no fault of his own, but just not a huge fan of his acting. So putting him anywhere, if you threw him in the Marvel universe, it'd be the same thing, man. He's too big to make it not distracting to me. So, and then on top of that, like you said, Black Adam being a character I don't have a very limited interest in. I mean, I felt the same way about Shazam. I didn't see Shazam until a couple months ago on HBO Max. So just not as interested in the character, all that kind of put together. Yeah, so it's like, we can wait a couple months till HBO, and we did. So, yeah, well, pretty much the same reasons as you.
And as we're hitting this thing now where we're realizing that it's 40 days, 2 months, less than 2 months, and we're getting this movie 6 weeks, and I can watch it at home.
Right.
Unless I need to see it, I can wait 6 weeks.
Most definitely. So we did. And
Dwayne Johnson spoiled all the stuff that I needed to not know before the movie even came out. So what was I waiting for? I watched that cameo, and because he did that, I watched that whole post-credit scene on Twitter, like the day the movie released, because it leaked immediately, because he told everybody it was there. So everybody knew it was there. So everyone's there ready with their cell phone to record it to get those clicks.
Exactly.
So I was just like, you know what? I already know it's there. So let's just watch it. And I watched it on my phone the day the movie came out because he told me it was there. So it's like, I understand why you did it. And I'm sure it brought in a little bit extra.
Not me, though.
Not me. So Black Adam, the film. What did you like about this movie? What were some highlights? Let's talk about some of the good in this movie, because I do feel like there was some good in this movie. There were some things I definitely liked about this movie, and I want to pile on a little bit of love before we kind of go into what didn't work. So do you have anything off the top of your head that you liked?
No, I mean, some of the action sequences worked for me. I liked a lot of the fight scenes. Like, I like big bombastic superhero stuff. So he's flying through the air and knocking jets around and fighting people, and it had that little more adult tone, where he's, actually effing people up, and a lot of that worked. Some of the co-stars, like some of the members of the Justice Society, I thought were good. I thought Pierce Brosnan did well as Dr. Fate, and the Hawkman character worked for me. The other two, not so much. I mean, Cyclone and Atom Smasher, they were just all right, but I thought those two, I liked Hawkman. He looked cool. Yeah, man. But outside of that, that's my main praise for this movie. I didn't mind the action. Like, it kept me watching. Every time there was kind of action on screen, little super CGI heavy at times. Of course, it's going to be, but yeah, I thought some of that was pretty cool. That's my main thing that I can think of that I enjoyed about this movie. Top of mind. I don't know. What about you?
The Justice Society. I thought the Justice Society was done well for what they did. I do have some other stuff we'll talk about here in a minute, but I thought I liked the team. I liked their feel. I thought they had good casting. I thought they had good banter. I thought they worked well together. Hawkman was a standout. I thought, for me, Aldous Hodge I was a little hesitant until he really like his initial before he really like turned into Hawkman. I was a little like, okay, I know that guy's Hawkman, but I don't know if I'm feeling it, based on other versions and stuff. And obviously they didn't. And once again, I'm trying not to go negative here, but they didn't really give us anything on these characters. They just were like, here they are. And so it was a little jarring to try to figure out, but I thought he did a good job. Yeah, Pierce Brosnan. I mean, it's James Bond. He's doing his thing. So I really liked the Justice Society of America, and I really liked the guy who played Kareem, Mohammed Amir. I thought he was funny. What's her name's Adriana's brother. I thought he was just funny the way, singing it, like he delivered his comedic thing. There was a lot of jokes that didn't land for me. His jokes landed. I thought he was an entertaining character, even at the end when they're having that big war and he's like, I die by electricity. And he was like fearless. That made me laugh.
Yeah, he had some funny moments.
He had some funny parts, and I thought they all worked well. He sold them well. I really enjoyed when he was there and thought he did a really good job as well. So I definitely I thought that those characters all really shined and kept the movie going. I agree with you. The action up until the third act, I thought that, that fight with Black Adam and the Justice Society was really cool. I really thought that was a cool fight. And I enjoyed just that idea of what they were doing and how they did it. And I thought they did it. The CG looked really good. And like I said, the action was well done. I'll give you that as well. So there's definitely, I was good for about 90 minutes of this film.
Yeah.
I was good.
I agree.
I was carried along for the first 90. It was the last 30, as tends to be, that it drops off, and I was like, this movie's not over yet. I had to check the time. When you have to check the time to see how much is left, that's never the best sign. Yeah. Now, what was this movie about, man?
Like, that's the question. That's the question we should have kicked the whole thing off with.
I know. I wanted to. I know we like to be like, what'd you think about this movie? And we end up, if we didn't like it, and I'm not saying we didn't like this movie. I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd. It's fine. This movie was fine. It had a lot of redeemable. I was entertained. Like you said, the action, the tone, the music. I thought they had some good music choices. That one scene where they had Black Adam destroying all the inner gang when he was first resurrected, and he was destroying all those people, and you heard the music building. And I said, they're about to switch to Rolling Stones because you could hear it. And then they switched to the Paint It Black, and then they did it. And I was like, yeah, they built to that really nicely, and it was done really well. And then, like you said, he was just effing people up and ripping them apart. And I was like, this is super violent, and it was cool. So I mean, that was definitely a cool way to bring him back into this world. But there was so much about just the Black Adam portion. I mean, Black Adam was the weakest part of this whole movie. Like, his story didn't fully make sense. They were there, but they were trying so hard to be like, hey, he's a villain, but he's also a hero. And we were going to do, I kill people. And you're just like, it just tried so hard to be like, I'm a bad guy, but I'm cool. And you're just like, it just reeked of trying too hard.
Yeah, those parts definitely were just beating us over the head with that stuff over and over. So, I mean, your question, what is this movie? I don't know, man. It's Black Adam's story. Did we need it or want it? I don't know.
What was the role of Adriana? What was she doing?
Is this that's the main girl? That's her name?
The mom. She was going into she's the one who resurrected Black Adam. She was looking for the crown. Why? It was hidden for
I feel like they kind of
thousands of years.
Yeah. Well, I think she knew that the inner gang was looking for it, and her mission or thing she wanted to do was make sure she found it first and hid it away from them again somewhere else so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Is that not kind of what they said? I feel like I picked that up.
I guess I know she was looking for it. I felt like she was just cocky and said, "Oh, I can hide it better. Let me find it." That was her.
I guess
that was the. But then did she not? But was her always plan to hide this thing was just to put it in her kid's backpack?
Right,
because she got it.
I mean, yeah.
There was no plan in place.
It was. I think it was kind of just one of those things that they didn't expand on enough. Like, well, once you find the crown, what are you guys going to do with it? it just then became just chaos of inner gangs here. They know we got to run. We're on the run. Let's hide it in the backpack, hide it in my kid's room. My brother's going to be wearing out at his head for a little laugh moment.
That was funny. Where's that crown? And that dude's watching Clint Eastwood with this thing sitting on his head. That was funny.
Yeah.
Why this thing is historically, or imbued with the power of 6 demons that you're aware of. Why is everyone just touching this thing like whatever? There was zero fear around this crown. Like, I would not want to touch that thing.
No. Yeah, it seemed like it should have been taken a little more seriously. Like, instead of just bouncing around loose in this little kid's backpack who has superhero posters all over his room. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's wasn't really expanded upon too much, and kind of just a loose plot like this. Is like, okay, I guess I buy it because that's what they're telling me.
Okay,
I don't know.
The Adriana character was all over the place for me. Like I said, she just seemed like she was just there to move the plot forward, which obviously she was, but I just couldn't get in. She went from adventure warrior to protective mama to I'm going to make stupid decisions to try to do stuff that tries to help, but not like, I just care about my son. Okay, so you're going to give the bad guy the crown that he wants so he could just shoot you and your son because he's got what he wants. Like, I never understand that in movies, and it always bothers me. I'm a spiteful person, so put in that situation, I'm like, I'm not going to just give you what I want. You want this crown. Yeah. What's to stop you from killing me and my son after I give it to you? Nothing. So unless we come up with grounds in which I know I'm safe, you're not going to get it. If you're going to kill us, cool, but you're still not going to get it. I have the power.
Yeah, it's a common thread that
I know it always
too much and doesn't never makes sense. I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, we can kind of just say she was there to wake up Black Adam. Somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
So her life was in danger. She brought back the champion, and we carried on.
So, is the Justice Society part of the Suicide Squad?
So that's confusing too, isn't that?
How did Amanda Waller pull them together?
Yeah, and they dropped everything off. Like, when they were coming back with Black Adam as a prisoner, they took him to Task Force X headquarters, which is Suicide Squad, right?
Yeah.
So it's confusing. I don't know if they wanted to use Amanda Waller again in something. So
is this just their way of like basically saying that she was Nick Fury? She's like our go-to leader of this, and forget about every other movie, including James Gunn's Suicide Squad, the last time we saw her when she was being a complete evil person. She's the good guys. She's calling the Justice Society to get them together. She's assigning them this mission to go handle Black Adam. It's like, what?
Yeah, why wouldn't she just bring in then Harley Quinn and all those, the Suicide Squad for that mission? They're apprehending a out of control metahuman. Well, doesn't that sound like something the Suicide Squad just did? So what crime did Dr. Fate commit that he's in debt to Amanda Waller? And you know what I mean?
Yeah. Why are they listening to her? Like, that was never, I must have missed that somewhere, that she has this power to, I mean, last thing I saw, she was implanting bombs in people's heads to get them to do what she wanted.
But now she's also in charge of the Justice Society, along with the Suicide Squad somehow.
And that was my thing, is I wish the Justice Society deserved better than this film.
Yeah, they could have been.
I mean, I know very little about the Justice Society, but at least treat them with something. Like, I mean, at least understand what they are, because according to this movie, the way I could look at it, not knowing anything, they're part of the Suicide Squad. And I must have just missed them.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like to me.
That's the way they laid it out. That's what makes sense in the way they told the story. It's very strange.
So that's cool. We did have Henry Winkler doing his thing.
Yeah, we had Henry Winkler for 10 seconds. That was fun.
On a Zoom call, FaceTimed his role. Right. How much money do you think he made for that FaceTime call?
Dwayne Johnson just called him up. Hey, Henry, you busy? You got 30 minutes?
Yeah, here, say these couple lines real quick. Okay, cool. Yeah, it was kind of very confusing. There were a lot of moments in this film where I was just like, what is happening right now? and trying to piece it together. And then they wanted to be cute for a lot of moments where they're like, oh, well, it's not the kid in the beginning doing the DDP signal to bring his people together wasn't trying to like, wasn't the Rock, or as I called him yesterday, the Kid Rock. And then you got very confused as to what movie I was watching.
When was Kid Rock in this movie?
Kid Rock was in this movie. So then they were like, no, that was my son. So then they did this really creepy CGI of the Rock.
Yeah, that didn't look right, did it?
No, and it didn't look right because of the fact that that dude was still too buff.
Right? To be like for a slave man, he still looks like he could whoop my ass. Yeah, he should have been like, Chris Evans, Captain America 1 level of weird looking, not just, you just did a lot of cardio this year, Rock. Like, he still was pretty jacked just to being an emaciated slave there, like, come on. Yeah. It already looked kind of funny. And then I swear, and I didn't really want to go back and watch the opening, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't The Rock or his voice doing those lines in the opening. No, and I hate in movies when they do that is like they purposely mislead you.
Yeah.
So you can't see the twist.
Yeah.
Like, well, of course I wasn't going to know that was a thing that happened because you used a totally different actor and voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of a cheap way to get your twist in there. Yeah. This isn't the first movie to do that, though. It happens all the time.
No, it happens all the time. They did the same thing when the bad guy, Ishmael, I think. Yeah, Ishmael, when he lowered that thing so they could kill him.
Mm-hmm.
He pushed the little button, and I'm like, why did he push that button? And they did this whole thing, and then they waited another half an hour before they explained why he did that. So then I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But you know what? I just spent 30 minutes calling him an idiot and hating this movie.
Right.
Because you wanted to be cute and have this extra twist to come in to bring a third act that I didn't want. So you're like, no, because I now sat there for 30 minutes calling him an idiot and thinking that you had him lower that thing just so they could get to him because there was no way. You created a situation in which no one could get through your Eternium wall. So you just made him push the button and, let him in. Yes, you came back around and explained. Cool. Now I have that information. If I ever watch this movie again, I can maybe appreciate it more, and be like, oh, okay, he knew what he was doing. He needed to die so he could come back as a CGI monster. But it's just still one of those things where it pulls me out of the film because I'm questioning why he did that. There was no teases leading me to have an understanding to figure anything out. It was just another bait and switch moment where this film wanted to seem cleverer than it was by not telling you everything. And then you're like, oh, well, I could never have solved this mystery because you didn't give me the clues. You can't.
Happens all the time, man. And I know it annoys me every time.
It was part of the reason why I didn't like Knives Out, the original one, because I felt like they purposefully kept clues from you so you couldn't solve the mystery because they didn't want you to. They wanted to be clever.
No, yeah, they don't want you to solve it. They want it to unfold and be like, oh, well, I didn't have all the information, but cool, yeah.
But when I go see a movie, when I like to figure stuff out. So anyway, it's just one of those things that's just kind of jarring for me of trying to figure out. And then what's funny is every version of Black Adam has been defeated by them one way or another getting him to say Shazam. So he goes back to his human form. And then all of the years... Yeah, and then all of the years catch up to him and he disappears to dust because he's 2,000 years old. So then he rapidly ages. That did not happen in this movie. He just turned into another badass warrior that doesn't drown, apparently. He was just a man. How was he fighting? He was getting shot. He was getting beat with those sticks. He had zero powers, and he's overpowering 15 men, armed, trained guards. This dude has no training. He was what should have been an emaciated slave with zero training, and he just overpowered 15 guards, got shot a bunch of times, beat with sticks, and just ran through them. Like, I understand these guys have these things in their contracts to be tough, but come on, man, don't do it to the detriment of your film.
Yeah, that scene was nonsensical.
Yes.
It didn't have to be in there. They could have had him get out somehow without fighting through all these train guards. And like you said, getting hit with like police batons and it not affecting him. It's like, so is he still Black Adam or is he not? Because he still seems like he's Black Adam at this point.
No, I rewrote that scene. You know how you do that scene and still accomplish what they wanted to accomplish? Because what they wanted to accomplish was that, that drive. And then, of course, the family is seeing him at the death's door when he's trying to get away and mimicking the, beating of slaves and doing all of this stuff. You have him come out of that thing. You have those guards jumping on him and you have him getting beat down and you have him falling down and you have them hitting him and blood coming out and him trying to pull the mouth guard out of his mouth so he could say Shazam. And then you could do flashbacks to showing him getting whipped when he was a slave. You could do flashbacks showing his family, playing the music, swelling up, being super emotional. You have him like he's getting beaten to death by his, masters in quotes. And then as he pulls it out, they're covering his mouth, trying to stop him from talking. And then he kind of is able to go Shazam, and then he blows them all up and then takes off flying. You would have accomplished the same thing. You would have had more emotional investment. It just, to me, it seemed like, but instead they just had him running through everybody and never questioning how this regular man was getting whooped on. You could still show the resolve of him. I don't know. I felt like there was way better ways to do what they wanted to accomplish.
Well, The Rock doesn't get beat up.
I know.
Didn't you know?
I know.
When did he even get beat up? Really? When did he get someone get the better of him in this movie? Really, at all?
No one ever did.
Not much. Yeah.
Just that one moment with the bomb.
He decided to give up the power.
Why?
Right, because he decided that he wasn't the hero that his son was going to be, so he needs to not have it anymore. I guess. I don't know.
Was it because he hurt? Because that kid got hurt?
Well, honestly, don't know, man. I don't remember. That's how generic this kind of movie was to me. Like, I don't remember very much of the details. Like, specifically, it's all just a generic paint by number superhero movie kind of to me. So even as we're going, I'm like, I don't know who is that person. I don't remember.
I don't know.
That's how much it stuck with me. I watched it like not even 24 hours ago.
I watched it today. So, like I said, I thought I enjoyed this film for what it was. Like I said, some of the action, like I said, I wasn't bored watching this film. I was questioning a lot of things watching this film. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. The stories that came out of it, which was Justice Society is the highlight of this film, is 100% correct. They were the highlight of this film. And clearly leading into our earlier discussion that we had, this was supposed to kick off the revitalized version of the DCEU, the Snyderverse, whatever they wanted to call it. This seemed like that's what they were planning. That's what Dwayne Johnson was planning. That's what they were hoping for. While nobody really, or while everybody knowing that that's not true. Ultimately.
Yeah.
Because there's had a lot of Snyderverse in it. But then
it did.
Obviously that's all dead.
He was kind of hoping. I mean, obviously, we know he was kind of just hoping that this is bringing back Superman. He wants to fight Superman. He's a fan of Henry Cavill's portrayal. He wanted him back. He felt like he had enough sway to do it. He was able to get it done, even though I feel like the people at DC weren't convinced that they even wanted to do it. They just kind of did it to please him, and like, we can't upset The Rock. You cannot disturb The Rock. He's the biggest star in the world.
Yeah.
And I still feel like they didn't know what they were going to do with it after the fact. We know now that James Gunn's been brought in and he's like, no, we're doing it my way. Not going to happen. Sorry, Henry. You seem like a nice guy. Not going to happen. Just, I don't know, man. Such a mess. Such a mess. As this movie was, like, you just kind of said, like, you weren't bored. I wasn't bored. It dragged, like we talked about. It went on too long. The whole third act was kind of unnecessary.
I was 100% satisfied with this movie when he gave up his powers. They locked him up in the water tank, the Bantha tank, healing him. Maybe that's how he got his powers. They merged some genres together. But I was completely like, I was 100% like, okay, this is where they're taking this movie. They're going to end here. I'm cool with that. I was just sitting there trying to figure out how are we going to get to this post-credits scene if he's locked up. And then they started showing that body bag, and I'm like, oh my God, this movie's not over. And then I checked, and it was like 40 more minutes, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it.
Yeah, 2 hours doesn't seem like it's 2 hours doesn't seem like it's a long movie, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
When in these terms, you know what I mean? When it's 100%. Just kind of going nowhere.
100%.
I don't know, man. This movie's basically to me just like built in a boardroom that Dwayne Johnson was sitting at the head of the table. Like it just feels very robotic. There's not really any soul to it. There's no heart to the movie to me. It's just kind of like a paint by numbers. This is what happens at the beginning, middle, end. There's a conflict. He loses his powers. He gets them back. He saves the day. Blah, 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 so on, so on. How many times have we seen this? And they're all just very, mid. It's like there's nothing in this movie that I'll probably remember next week, to be honest. And that's kind of what I expected from the beginning.
And I think that's been the problem with the DC EU, the Snyderverse from inception, is that it was built in a boardroom. Aside from Man of Steel, was there another DC movie that didn't feel like that? Or that you don't recall hearing stories? Maybe Wonder Woman, the first one. Every other one either felt Wonder like Woman. Or you heard stories about executives wanting this, that, or the other. Be more like Marvel. Be more like Marvel. Be more like Marvel. That should be the tagline for the DCEU. Be more like Marvel. Because you could see it written on every one of these films, and this one is included.
And somehow WB can make a movie like The Batman that a lot of people are putting in their best films of 2022 list. And they can make a movie like that when somebody has an idea and love for the material. And, we've seen they can do it, like even Joker to a lesser extent. But somehow we still get this. We still get Black Adam. We still get what I believe Flash and Aquaman 2 are going to be just like generic, paint by numbers superhero films. And it's kind of like, yeah, Black Adam's exactly what I thought it was going to be. This is why I didn't rush out opening weekend to see it, because I knew this is what it was going to be. So that's kind of where I stand for the most part, man. Yeah.
Can't say it any better. Black Adam, it's what we thought it was going to be. And that is, I think, how we're going to wrap up this conversation. We will be back. Don talked about the best of 2022 list that the Batman's on it. Is it going to be on ours? It might be. It might not. Who knows? But we are going to have a conversation the next time we come around, most likely after the holidays. So you all have a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all of those good things, whatever you celebrate, whatever you believe in. Enjoy it with family. Enjoy it with friends. Have a good time. Don, my friend, I will see you in a few days at this point, or we've already hung out, depending on when you listen to this. So I'm super excited about that. So yeah, happy holidays to everybody. We will see you on the flippity flop. But that's going to do it for us this week. So for Raise the Geek, I'm Chris.
And I'm Don.
And thanks for checking out the show,
where geek is all we speak. Bye.